All right, let's talk about a real Hollywood head-scratcher. What if I told you that one of the absolute worst movies of 2009 was also one of its biggest, most massive hits? We are talking about Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, a movie that somehow managed to be a colossal failure and an incredible success, all at the same time. How on earth is that even possible? Well, let's get into it.
And okay, this right here, this is the heart of the paradox. On one side, you've got a dismal 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics absolutely hated it, a certified dud. But then you look at the other side, $836.5 million worldwide. It's like the audience just completely ignored what the critics were saying. So what were they all lining up to see?
Well, the studio strategy was actually pretty simple and really powerful. The first movie was a huge hit, right? So for the sequel, they just decided to escalate, well, everything. The entire plan was built on one simple idea. Bigger is always better.
To go bigger, they first had to go deeper into the lore. I mean, they didn't just throw in a new villain. They gave the whole conflict this ancient, cosmic history. The Fallen wasn't just some other Decepticon. Oh no, he was basically a godlike figure, one of the original primes from 17,000 BC, who wanted to destroy our sun. The stakes couldn't get any higher.
And this was their whole more is more approach in action. The first film had, 14 robots? The sequel didn't just add a few more, it more than tripled that number to 46. You add in that ancient history, a giant robot combiner the size of a building, and battles that jump all over the globe from Shanghai to Egypt, the goal was pretty clear. Create a spectacle so massive you just had to see it on the biggest screen possible.
But while the scale was absolutely exploding on screen, behind the scenes, things were kind of imploding. This big push to make a bigger, crazier movie ran headfirst into some serious production problems, and that's what led to its critical downfall.
So here's the real issue, the 2007 writers' strike. The writers literally had just 2 weeks to bang out a basic outline before the strike started. This left the director, Michael Bay, with something called a scriptment. It's not quite a script, not quite an outline. He basically had to build out the rest of the story using pre-planned action sequences. So the story was being built around the explosions instead of the other way around.
And oh boy, did the critics notice. This quote from the legendary Roger Ebert just says it all. He didn't just dislike it, he called watching it a horrible experience. And trust me, a lot of his colleagues felt the exact same way.
And look, it wasn't just the critics. Listen to this from the star of the movie himself, Shia LaBeouf. He flat out admits they got lost. That in the race to get bigger and bigger, they lost the anchor of the movie. You know, the actual human story that made people care about the first one.
But if you need any more proof, here's the real kicker. It comes from the director, Michael Bay. Years later, he just came out and said it. The movie was crap. And he blamed it directly on having to rush everything because of the writer's strike. I mean, when the director and the star are agreeing with the critics, you know you've got a problem.
And just to put the cherry on top of this whole disaster Sunday, the film was a huge winner at the Razzies, the awards for the worst movies of the year. Worst picture, worst director, and worst screenplay. So, officially, critically, it was one of the worst movies made that year.
And yet, and this is the crazy part, none of that mattered. Not to the audience anyway. While critics were writing these scathing reviews, people were lining up around the block, turning this terrible movie into an unstoppable box office juggernaut.
Just look at that number for a second. Over $836 million.
The bad reviews, the complaints about the story, the unbearable length, it was all like water off a duck's back. This movie wasn't just a success, it was one of the biggest financial blockbusters of the entire year.
And this chart really shows you how insane that growth was. The first Transformers was already a monster hit, making over $700 million. But the sequel, the one everyone said was terrible, it didn't just match it, it blew past it by more than $120 million. The franchise was actually getting more popular.
It was a true phenomenon. I mean, it made $200 million in its first 5 days. It sold over 11 million DVDs and Blu-rays. And it finished the year as the 4th highest grossing movie on the entire planet. By every single financial metric you can think of, this movie was a wild success. So what do we make of all this? How can a movie be both Worst Picture of the Year and a box office champion? It's because Revenge of the Fallen left behind this powerful and, honestly, kind of controversial legacy. It proved that a blockbuster could be completely critic-proof.
This success basically created a new playbook for Hollywood. Step 1. Launch a ginormous marketing campaign. We're talking over $150 million. Step 2. Deliver a visual spectacle so huge, so mind-blowing, that it feels like an event you just can't miss. And Step 3. Use that combo to create so much must-see hype that by the time the bad reviews come out, it's already too late. Everybody's already bought their ticket.
Which leaves us with this final massive question. Revenge of the Fallen is the ultimate case study. It seems to suggest that for a certain type of movie, the sheer scale of the spectacle can totally crush the need for a good story. But is that what we really want from our biggest movies? It's definitely something to think about next time you're buying the ticket.